Coming live from the studio, this is All Sports with Gerardo. Thank you for watching another episode of All Sports. This is your host, Gerardo. Today I'm going to talk about my first stadium experience outside of Denver, Colorado. I'm going to start off with Seattle and being at SafecoField. So I'm going to give you some background history about SafecoField. So to start off, SafecoField has a retractable roof that can open or close. Since it rains a lot in Seattle and our storms that come across the U.S. come through Seattle before they hit the mainland and go across the U.S., they have a retractable roof. So if it rains, then they can close the roof and they can still play baseball. If they did not have a retractable roof, then there'd be a lot of rain delays or postponed baseball games due to it raining a lot. But when they have the roof open, it's a really nice view that you get from SafecoField. You get a view of CenturyLink Field where the Seattle Seahawks play. You get a view of downtown Seattle. It's a really nice view from sitting behind home plate and being able to see the stadium in downtown Seattle in the background. So that's what I really like about SafecoField. And the other thing too is if you're in the outfield of SafecoField and you're looking towards home plate, a lot of people from Denver and that are always at Coors Field would say that when looking out from the outfield and looking towards home plate, and I even noticed this when I watch Mariners games or when I was at SafecoField, that it looks like you're at Coors Field if you're looking out towards home plate. SafecoField has parts that resemble Coors Field as well, so that's another thing that I like about SafecoField. So some background history about Seattle. The Seattle Mariners and the Seattle Seahawks used to play in the Kingdom. The Kingdom was exactly where CenturyLink Field stands today. And in the 1990s, the Seattle Mariners were playing in the Kingdom. And since they weren't playing that good of baseball, the team threatened to relocate to a different city if the city did not build a new stadium for the Mariners. So in 1995, when the team threatened to relocate if they didn't get a new stadium, the Mariners made it into the playoffs. So then the city decided that they will build a new stadium for the Seattle Mariners. So in March of 1997, they started breaking ground for SafecoField. And in July of 1999, that's when SafecoField opened. Some of my favorite players to be and to play on the Seattle Mariners is Ken Griffey Jr., Ichiro Suzuki, and Alex Rodriguez. So Alex Rodriguez got drafted by the Seattle Mariners. He played a couple seasons there before playing for the Texas Rangers and the New York Yankees. Ichiro Suzuki is one of the best players to ever play. He was very good in Japan, and when he came over to the major leagues, he has had a really good career. Another thing about Ichiro Suzuki, he played most of his career with the Seattle Mariners, then he played for the New York Yankees, and then he went and played for the Miami Marlins. This offseason, he went back to the Seattle Mariners. Actually, right now, this weekend, the Colorado Rockies are playing the Seattle Mariners here at Coors Field, so I've been able to see Ichiro take batting practice and be on the field. And when Ichiro was on the Miami Marlins, I came and saw him play here at Coors Field as well. I also seen him when he was on the Mariners before, and also when the Yankees came as well. So I'm glad to see Ichiro here on the field. I know it might be the last time, since Seattle is an American League team and the Mariners do not come to Coors Field every year, so I know this might be the last chance to see Ichiro up close. I've mainly been seeing him on TV. But another thing about Ichiro Suzuki is he did his 3,000 hit a few years ago here at Coors Field. That was really awesome to see. I got to see it on TV, and also I got to see it at Coors Field as well, and witness such a great player do such an amazing accomplishment of getting 3,000 hits. Not too many baseball players in the major leagues can say that they have more than 3,000 hits. So in my opinion, Ichiro Suzuki is definitely a first ballot Hall of Famer. He will make it into the Hall of Fame. So going back to Safeco Field, I went in July of 2010. I got to see the Mariners play the Chicago White Sox. What I like about Safeco Field is if you're in the outfield, you get a good view of the baseball game when it's playing, but you can also stand behind the Mariners bullpen or the visitors bullpen, and you can watch the game, but you could also watch the pitchers warm up, and you're up close to them. You're literally like only a few feet away from them, straight across, so you could even have a conversation with one of the players in the bullpen. There's another standing room area out in center field that you can stand and watch the game. There's nice areas behind first base, third base, and behind home plate where you can watch the game and see the amazing view of downtown Seattle. They have a nice scoreboard, and just like I told you, their roof opens and closes, so you never have to worry about the game being rained out. Or like if you were to travel to Seattle, if you have not been to a Mariners game, I highly recommend it. It's a very nice stadium, and you don't have to worry about the game not happening because it's raining. All they gotta do is close the roof. But if the roof is open and it's a nice day, then the roof will be open and you can get an amazing view of the baseball game in downtown Seattle. I also really like their scoreboard. Safeco Field has a really nice layout. So if you have not been to Safeco Field before, I highly recommend it. Safeco Field was definitely one of my favorite stadiums to go to. It was the first stadium I went to outside of Denver. So I definitely would like to go back to Safeco Field, and it always will be one of my favorite stadiums as well. And if you have not been to Seattle, I highly recommend that you go to Seattle as well. It's a nice city to go tour, and they definitely have a nice stadium to go to as well. And since we're in the middle of the month and it's July, I started off with Seattle and telling you guys about my experience at Safeco Field. If you have not watched my videos from Coors Field, the Pepsi Center, and Broncos Stadium at Mile High, I highly recommend that you watch those videos. I started off with showing you the stadiums in my hometown here in Denver, Colorado. I started off with Seattle and telling you about my experience of being at Safeco Field. That was the first stadium that I went to outside of Colorado. So just like I told you guys, for the next 30 months, I will tell you about one stadium that I've been to at the middle of every month. So I started off with Seattle. So in the middle of August next month, I will tell you about my experience of being at Dodger Stadium. And after that, for the next 28 months, I will go in order and tell you about every stadium that I've been to across the US. So stay tuned for those videos. They will be coming up at the middle of every month. And I hope that you guys watch every video. Every stadium is unique in many different ways by their layout and what they look like and the view that they get. That's what I like about every Major League Baseball stadium. So one thing I highly recommend, if you have not been to these baseball stadiums, I highly recommend that you go to them. You will not be disappointed. Every stadium is different, and if you can accomplish going to all 30 baseball stadiums, I highly recommend. Not too many people can say that they've been to all 30 baseball stadiums. I'm the next person that can say I've been to all 30 baseball stadiums, so I highly recommend if you get that opportunity to do that, and you will not be disappointed. There's definitely some beautiful baseball stadiums across the US, so you got to go and see them. You got to go see a game, so I highly recommend that. And I hope that you enjoy watching these videos, and I hope that once you see these videos, if you have or have not been to those stadiums, I hope you enjoy going to those stadiums. I just want to say thank you to everybody that tunes into every episode of All Sports. Until next time, this is Gerardo.